What's up, guys? So, thanks for joining me here today. If you watched the little announcement stream earlier, we're going to talk about some heady stuff. So, first things first, Kami Vipassana Yogi says, "Wait, will SSS miss my pre-stream donation? Hope you actually got the $10 seen and deposited." Yes, I did, my friend. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. If you got a question, feel free to answer. Feel free to ask it, and I will answer it. I do appreciate that. So just to get right into things, so what we've got going on right now started on January 15th. It's going to go throughout the end of the year, but in March and April is going to be where it's most felt, right? So what's happening is there's a grand conjunction between the planet Saturn and Rahu. So if you're not familiar with, Vedic astrology or Jyotish, you might not know what Rahu is. You probably know what Saturn is. Saturn and Rahu conjunction is a big deal. It usually doesn't happen more than once every 150 years. But in this case, it happened in 1968 last, and we're going to get into why that's very significant. Rahu is also known as the north node of the moon. It's an invisible point, it's an invisible celestial body. Essentially, Rahu is the dark, invisible celestial body that they claim is the reason for solar eclipses. It's not, what do they say? A solar eclipse is, the Earth is, or the moon or the Earth is blocking the blah, blah, blah. It's not really that. It's Rahu. Rahu, which is exactly the same size as our sun. It's just dark. It blots it out. Kind of like Ketu is the same for the moon. Ketu is the same size as the moon, and whenever there's a lunar eclipse, Ketu is responsible for that. Ketu is known as the tail of the dragon, and Rahu is known as the head of the dragon. So, what's Saturn known for? Saturn is known classically as the planet of constriction, rules, authority, responsibility, the status quo. Slow glacial movement, kind of like what we hear with, the legal system is, the wheels of justice grind slowly. That's Saturn, and that's why Saturn is always depicted as Father Time or an old man with a long gray beard. He's slow, he moves slow. Not because he's dumb, but because he takes his time, because he's the big boss of the zodiac, and he's the big daddy. That's why, in the mafia, they say kiss the ring, Lord of the Rings. That whole thing was based off of Saturn, the mythos with that. So what does Rahu represent? Rahu is kind of like a higher order of materialism, ambition, opportunities. Like I said, Rahu's known as the head of the dragon. So Rahu is essentially like a head detached from a body. What is that? Basically a bunch of thoughts, barrage of thoughts and ideas and opportunities, and also in the negative sense, schemes, scams, get rich quick schemes, stuff like that. So the problem, you can probably already see why there's turbulence when Saturn and Rahu are in conjunction. Now, what does conjunction mean in terms of astrology? It just means that those two bodies inhabit the same constellation or the same zodiac sign at that time. So since January 15th, Saturn and Rahu have been in the sign of Pisces, and they've been about 15 degrees apart. Now, they're going to be both in the sign of Pisces until the end of 2025. But they're going to be closest together in the sign of Pisces in March and April. So let's talk about this. When was the last time that Rahu and Saturn were both conjunct in Pisces? Well, it happened in 1968, and I'm going to give you a brief rundown of three major events that happened in 1968, because when Rahu and Saturn are in the sign of Pisces, which is kind of the most heady and spiritual and bodiless sign of the zodiac, a lot of people who have a lot of Piscean placements in their chart, they don't feel like they belong in their body. They don't feel physically rooted. You know what I mean? So what happened in 1968? Martin Luther King was assassinated, Martin Luther King Jr. Robert F. Kennedy Sr. was assassinated by Sirhan Sirhan, who a lot of people claim was a Manchurian candidate. He was programmed, to take RFK's body, so to speak. And then what else happened is the famous Democratic Convention of 1968 in Chicago, where there was a huge riot. The police came out. They were known for intense police brutality that day. People were basically protesting about the Vietnam War, you know. And so, I mean, a lot of protesters got their skulls cracked. And all that kind of led up to what happened in 1970 with Kent State University in Ohio, the shootings, you know, where the authorities were shooting students. So it was a powder keg and much turbulence. So I think in 2025, we can expect a lot of turbulence, and probably even more this time around. Now, here's the thing. What I think, and I don't condone this, I don't want it to happen, but what I think is, I think you heard it here first, there's going to be an attempt on RFK Jr.'s life this spring or this summer. There's going to be an attempt on his life. Already he's shaking things up. He's taking his new position as head of, CDC, FDA, all of that. And he's really going to be shaking things up, and he's going to piss a lot of people off. Even with like the whole, raw milk thing right now, he's slated to, in March, supposedly he's going to hire Mark McAfee, who's the head of the largest raw milk dairy in California. He's actually a really nice guy. I've met him before. He's supposed to be in the cabinet, and that's already pissing people off too. So I think RFK Jr. is going to step on some toes. He's going to piss people off, and somebody's going to try to get him. Now, if they're going to be successful or not, I don't know. But with this type of placement, I don't see why they wouldn't be. I think also, kind of like in 1968, there was a lot of the rebellion and protests came because of ideology. And now with the start of Trump's administration, we see the Roman salutes, which they claim is not a fascist, symbol. But, where do we get fasces from? It comes from Rome. So it is, whatever you want to say about that, it is. So they're going to alienate people that way. Already, when this placement started January 15th, that was the last week of Joe Biden's presidency. So we started off with that shakeup, getting Trump back in again. And then what do we see in terms of materialism and wealth and appropriation of money? Is Doge, Elon Musk stepping into the government. He's another one. The assassination attempt might be on him. Who knows? But already so we see with what's being reported with Doge is a lot of unveiling of supposed misappropriation of funds and, basically government using Social Security as like a slush fund, with, a bunch of people who are 150 years old and not alive, claiming Social Security or whatever. I'm not too sure if that's verified or not. That's what the charge is. That's what they're saying. But we've got that going on. And I think also with this past year, basically vacillating from Pluto in Capricorn to Pluto in Aquarius, that once again kind of supercharges this race towards a new financial system. So what I think this means is inflation is not going to be tempered. It's going to get even worse. The Fed may actually change ship, and instead of trying to lower interest rates, they may actually raise rates more, and they may try to induce deflation, right? This may happen. I'm just thinking of different scenarios, but I think that this year is going to be the most turbulent since 2020. I also think that the avian flu may become another factor in that too. Because let's say, here's one more reason why RFK Jr. may be in trouble, right? Let's say the avian flu becomes a pandemic and RFK Jr. goes, well, we don't need to, he has a different approach to it, right? And people who like that, who like, shots in the veins, I didn't want to say the word there, they might get pissed with RFK. So that may be something too. I'm just thinking of, when you're trying to view the future in the sands of time, it's not always clear, but I think that that's something. But I do think this year we are going to see an assassination attempt. It's not going to be on Trump. I can tell you that right now. It's not going to be on Trump. It's either going to be Elon or RFK Jr. And once again, when I say stuff like that, I'm not trying to stir the pot. I'm not trying to be incendiary. I don't want that to happen. I got nothing against those guys at all, but I'm just saying that based on what I'm seeing with this conjunction, it very well could happen. The Kennedy curse is something that's very real. Anybody who knows anything about the Kennedy family knows that November 22nd, 1963, JFK was assassinated. June of 1968, RFK Sr. was assassinated. In 1999, in the summer, JFK Jr.'s plane went down just outside of Hyannisport in Martha's Vineyard. And in 2019, I believe one of RFK's nieces, RFK Jr.'s nieces, took her life because of depression. The Kennedy curse is, well, I mean, whether you believe in it or not, I mean, there's been a lot of problems with the Kennedy family. And I remember when I heard RFK Jr. was running for president initially, I said, this guy's really stepping in it. He knows what's coming. He's just stepping in it, though. He knows. He can't help himself. Now, is he an actor or is he legit? I don't know. Do these people really get assassinated or not? Or is it a staged? I don't know. Probably the former, I would imagine, But this is what we can see. And you can look at the backstory of the supposed Kennedy curse. Supposedly Joe Kennedy, who was, I guess, maybe he was running for president back in the 30s, 1937, I believe. He was on an ocean liner, and a rabbi, I guess, had asked him for a little bit of help in terms of granting safe passage for some European Jews to get to the United States. And apparently they say Joe Kennedy was anti-Semitic and all that, so he didn't want that to happen. So apparently the rabbi cursed him. Now, anybody who knows anything about Jewish religion, and rabbis knows that they don't curse people. There's a saying in Judaism that it's, when a curse is successful, everybody wants to take credit for it. But when a curse is unsuccessful, it's orphaned. Nobody wants to take credit for it. So, it's a nice backstory, but I don't believe it. I think you want to talk about karma and reincarnation. The Kennedy bloodline is just one of those. I don't understand this fucking retard. He literally he walks into my car with his chicken feed and hits the front of a vehicle. I already got hit by a drunk driver. My vehicle's totally effed up. Like, why would you do that? You fucking piece of shit. Like, look at the piece of shit. Look at this fucking piece of shit. Man, I don't understand people. I really don't understand people. And there's I don't care. This car's totaled out and I'm just enjoying its usage until it's dead. But, man, there's like careless people everywhere. Careless people, no respect for other people or other people's property. Whatever, it's always been that way. That's an aside. So, what else? So Saturn and Rahu, I think, in terms of your personal life, how it will affect you now, depends on your chart, depends on your placements. But what I would say is to be very careful, because with Rahu comes a lot of like quick opportunities, idealism, ambitions, a lot of ideas. Yeah, let's start that YouTube channel. Yeah, let's start Forex trading or whatever, But oftentimes you gotta be careful with that stuff, because if it sounds too good to be true, it certainly is. And the thing with Rahu is, if you, under the influence of Rahu, if you jump into one of these opportunities and you don't do it with intention and with research, Saturn will smack you down. And it will hurt much more than if you just didn't go down that path. But the other thing too with the Saturn and Rahu conjunction is I see like law enforcement type of stuff. So people who don't know how to stop, gamblers getting in trouble with gambling, parlays, for people who bet on sports, maybe betting on the NBA finals, and screwing your life up forever, criminals, people who do criminal acts, maybe getting away with stuff for a while, but then finally, justice catching up to them. I see things like that happening. Mental institutions, people who are already teetering on being unwell, going into a mental institution. For instance, the other day, there's this 20-year-old girl who works at the hardware store, and like we ended up hanging out the other day, and she's super chill, but she's like got some past mental issues. And I just laugh into my head because I'm like, of course I'm going to meet a person like this now, a month or so into, Rahu and Saturn being so close together in Pisces. The other thing with Pisces being such like an airy-fairy, spiritual, etheric, occult type of sign is that I think with whatever happens with this assassination attempt, if it happens indeed, there's going to be occultic overtones, and it's going to be very apparent. Unlike, with JFK or RFK or JFK Jr., where it's just, oh my God, it's an assassination, I think this one will be very apparent. Kind of like Alice Bailey in one of her books talks about the externalization of the hierarchy. Over time, the elites want this stuff to become saturated in the public mind, because the goal is not to keep it secret from you. The goal is to eventually make it so pervasive where you can't do anything but understand why they do what they do. So, that's just my opinion. Let's see. Anybody have questions, comments, anything like that? I'm not going to pretend that I'm like a grand astrologer or anything. I just take an interest in the subject. And I, sometimes you can put some pieces together. And when I heard about this for the first time, it just, RFK Jr. just popped into my head immediately. And I was like, oh shit, he's in trouble, So I really think it really may tie together like that with something like the avian flu popping off. And, the way that RFK handles it may be distasteful for somebody. I could definitely see it being another Antifa type of person. You know what I mean? I could definitely see it being somebody like that. But at the same time, we've got also a serial killer on the loose in Michigan, a black Army veteran who I guess he had snuffed out. He had snuffed out a person who had harmed a child, I guess, and he had killed somebody else, I believe. And he had written a note to his son that said, "I'd snuff you out too if you weren't my son, you snitch." Yeah. And he apparently, he's like, the notes he left said basically like, anybody who harms a black baby is in my crosshairs, So I don't recall what the guy's name is, but it's really interesting story to watch. Anybody who doesn't know about this, it really hasn't been reported in the media all that much from what I've seen. So you might want to look it up. It's kind of interesting. Obviously, for the sake of the public, I hope they catch the guy soon. But I mean, I do think his story is interesting. And I really would like to hear kind of, why he's doing what he's doing, I get it. I mean, some people are POS and, they deserve what comes to them. But at the same time, it's when you take the law into your own hands, it never goes according to plan, unless you're a contract unaliver, you maybe, but I don't think it ever goes according to plan. I think a lot of people end up, having problems or whatnot. Man, I'm trying to figure out what else I want to say. I think that kind of covers a lot of it. It's always kind of hard. I like to riff on this stuff and just improv, so I'm probably missing something that I wrote down in my notes earlier. But you heard it here first. You heard it here first. And man, I hope nothing happens to RFK Jr. But if something does, you heard it here first. Timestamp it, February 22nd. 2025. Hey. You never know. But it would make sense to me that there's kind of the way this Trump administration is rolling out is very strange. And they're already creating a lot of animosity, not just with the left, but with the right too. There's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of people who are not down with the whole, like Elon clowning around and being, on the spectrum in full public view. There's a lot of people who don't like, Elon and Steve Bannon and the others, doing their Roman salutes. There's a lot of people who are just wondering, like, are we verging into the 30s and the 40s? The post, an echo of the post-Weimar era in Germany, which is where Mustache Man came into power. Mustache Man, people who are not big on World War II history, they don't know that he was a convicted felon. His first attempt to overthrow the administration in Germany, he was at a beer hall in Munich, and he tried to, in an incendiary way, overthrow the government, and he was convicted, put in prison. He was a felon. So it seems to me, the elites do this, where they repeat history in cycles that's easy to follow for anybody with half a brain, and they do it to show a mirror to the public and say, "You guys never learn, do you?" You know what I mean? So again, I'm not for or against Trump or anybody. I just see things for what they are, and Trump is supposed to be a sort of populist new mustache man for the 21st century. Not, 1-for-1 ratio, but something like that. And, again, you got to remember, just like fascism in Germany, a lot of people fell into the arms of Hitler, Mustache Man's charisma, and very few people were able to withstand it. And it's the same thing with Trump. You don't have to like him or dislike him, but you should always, like with any politician, always view them with distrust. And if everybody starts making that symbol, don't make the symbol. You know what I mean? Because that's the thing about fascism and the populism to fascism pipeline is it's always return to tradition. It's always ethnic hygiene or whatever. It's always this sort of thing. And you have to ask yourself, in history, when has this ever worked? It's never worked. But it's what's going to happen. And you know why? I've said this before. Because we have to have this far right reaction, because what comes next, see, what y'all don't understand is Trump's presidency is not important in the slightest. America turns 250 years old next year. That's the symbol of usually when a democracy fails. What's important is what comes next in 2028, which, as I've said so many times, AOC is going to be the president. Her running mate could be Pete Buttigieg, maybe. It could be Ilhan Omar. Who knows? We don't know. But what comes next is 2028 AOC, and what's going to come after, Trump. The script is for Trump to fumble the bag and the economy goes to shit the second half of his term. AOC, much like FDR last century, is going to come with a new deal, a new Green Deal. Okay, this is already written in the script. So that's what comes next. This presidency is actually quite unimportant. This is just, basically it's just to increase the tension, increase the rift between the public. And then in 2028, there's a collective sigh where the maps are going to be bluer and purpler than ever. This is essentially the last stand for the conservative side in the United States. It's over after this. It's just over. And it's going to dovetail with capitalism failing people, and capitalism and conservatism kind of go hand in hand. You know what I mean? A lot of conservative people, a lot of business owners are realizing that it's just, they're getting screwed too. So you're going to see a lot more sympathy towards different systems, trying socialism or whatever. Now, I'm not saying that's right or wrong. I'm just saying that's what you're going to see. There's a grand scheme to all this. And I think this Saturn-Rahu conjunction is it's going to be the first intimation for most people that this administration is going to be a very bumpy ride. And it's not going to be what you think it's going to be, where, we deport everybody and we're going to be back in the promised land. There's going to be a lot of wreckage and a lot of problems. And Trump is going to come across as like a late stage Roman emperor, especially I think what we need to watch out for. Trump right now is okay, but I think the scary thing is going to be when the ship starts going down. You don't know if it's scripted or not, of course, but if it's not, I think we need to worry about how how Trump handles things when it seems like things are really not going his way. We may see some problems then. I don't know. But all in all, for the next 4 years is going to be very frightening, I think. And I don't mean that as like a liberal person, because I'm not that. I'm just saying that it's going to be bad for everybody. The only good that's going to come out of it is that everybody's going to look around and go, wow, we're all getting royally effed right now. And so there may be a little bit of unity coming from that, where people might look at other human beings and actually be like, oh, yeah, we're kind of all part of the struggle together, That's always been the communist dream in a way, is to get everybody to, get on the same page with that, and will it happen? I don't know. But like I said, I'm not right or left. I just kind of try to take the bird's eye view and see it for what it is. Frostfro, thank you for the £5 super chat. I do appreciate that very much. Yeah, if you guys have questions for me, feel free to ask them. That's kind of all I had, I think. With this stuff, I think what's unimportant is me going into details. What's more important is just kind of giving you the basic outline, and then you can run with that and think about it, and maybe you'll make different connections, But yeah, I really do think this spring, this summer is when we're going to get some major events. And like I said, it might be avian flu, might be just some isolated incident with RFK or Elon, who knows? But that'll be the first bump, I think, in terms of this administration. It's going to be wild, man. It's going to be a wild ride. But, what's that ancient Chinese curse? May you live in interesting times. And well, I think we've been cursed, because I think we're living in very interesting times. Now, I've been hoping for another lockdown, and I've been very vocal about that. I loved the lockdowns. It was a wonderful time for me. I had a wonderful time, I enjoyed it. I would love another lockdown, I'm telling you, but will it happen in 2025? Before I knew this conjunction was happening, I really didn't think it was going to happen until 2026 or 2027, but I'm starting to second guess, and I'm starting to think maybe. When's the last time you heard about, when's the last time you even heard about, COVID in the news? I run into people in real life every once in a while. They're like, oh yeah, I got a COVID. I'm like, bruh, what? I haven't heard about that in like 3 years, dude. I don't know. Maybe it's because I live in Arkansas, but I just don't hear about this stuff. Maybe if you live in New York or London or LA or something, then you hear about it, but to me, it's been, dead in the water for 3 years at least, So I don't know. Maybe we'll see a new variant, or maybe we'll see, avian flu. They say, avian flu typically is not easily transmitted to human beings, but they say that there could be a mutation, and that mutation could cause that. Now on my Patreon, I've over the years talked about what I think the next pandemic is going to be. I didn't think it was going to be avian flu. I could be wrong. I thought it was going to be something different. Well, might as well say it. I thought it was going to be this thing called Q fever. You could look up Q fever online. The reason why I thought it was going to be Q fever is because it affects a lot of small ruminants and cattle. And I think if you really want to bring down the public's self-sufficiency in regard to the food supply and like the homesteading trend, is you spread something around that affects goats and sheep and cattle, and then the government starts sending around their goons to say, hey, you need to euthanize your animals, or we need to quarantine them. I could see something like that happening. So the first time I said something like that, I believe, was in 2022. That's when I said it was going to be Q fever. Obviously, hey, I'm not saying I'm a psychic or anything, but a couple years later, and I don't know, they have said with avian flu that purportedly it has spread to some cattle, I think at a dairy farm in Georgia. And they've had a couple human transmissions. I haven't heard anything in regard to like goats or sheep or any other small ruminants, but it really makes you wonder, guys. It really makes you wonder. So, all I do is I try to put the dots together and try to maybe offer a couple scenarios of what could happen. And, all you can do is you could choose to accept, reject, or just go, oh, well, that might happen, so I'll prepare accordingly. And so that's what that is. But yeah, man, I think that's all I got. If you guys have any questions or comments, I'll stick on here for a couple minutes, and you can throw them at me. But yeah, I mean, I think I could just repeat myself over and over again, but I don't think it's really, I don't think that's really anything anybody wants to hear. I will say, if anybody's interested in personally your own life, how you should approach the conjunction, you can hit me up at thesoftspokenshaman@gmail.com. Those of you guys have been on the channel for a while, you guys know I do natal charts and stuff like that, and I try to help people in terms of astrology, how to position yourself accordingly so you can do okay. Mark says Elon must be a plant. Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, no doubt. I mean, we don't even know anything about Elon's background. I mean, he might even be like a love child. I mean, he looks like the dictator Pol Pot. He also, some people claim that he has a Jewish background. I don't know. Nobody really knows too much about the guy. It's interesting to me that in 2017, they kind of introduced, Elon to the public with that initial Joe Rogan interview. I remember that. It was like, back then, Elon, he's the quirky genius, and none of this is by accident. It's always, they got to introduce your new hero to you. And like Albert Pike said in the past, when the public need a hero, we will provide them. When the public need a patsy, we will provide them. When the public need a scapegoat, we will provide them. When the public need a villain, we will provide them, And that's exactly what it is. It's just central casting, and Elon, with his kind of on the spectrum, and I don't think he's fudging that. I think he probably actually really is that way. He's a folk hero it's really genius. He's a folk hero for a lot of like millennials and Gen Z who are on the spectrum, obviously, if you want, people to accept your folk hero, your populist folk hero, then he should be like them, And so I think now we're going to see a lot more government plants and industry plants coming out the woodwork who are on the spectrum because they're more relatable. When you see Elon get on stage at like the CPAC the other day, it's cringe AF. It is so cringe. But at the same time, if you're on the spectrum, he in a sense represents you. You're like, man, this is just this guy's like us. Frostfro with the 10 pounds, thank you so much, says astrology versus astronomy. Well, I mean, so here's the thing, man. It's like anything, dude. It's like gematria and mathematics, gematria and trigonometry. Trigonometry, it's boring if you don't have the mind for it. Astronomy's boring if you don't have the mind for it. If you have the mind for it, it's not boring. Astronomy, to me, is just strictly science, strictly positivist science, strictly ones and zeros, whereas astrology is kind of, there's a degree of interpretation, you know what I mean? Astrology, astronomy is to geometry, trigonometry, and statistics as astrology is to mathematics being applied to like random number generators in casino slot machines. So there's a value to both of them. And the ancient quadrivium and trivium, basically like the ancient education system, it was all called astronomy, but astrology was rolled into it. There was no bifurcation. There was no separation, and so I think, honestly, I mean, yeah, that would be the best way to teach it or learn it nowadays, is to have it all rolled into one. The problem, I think, and the reason why a lot of people gravitate to astrology is the barrier to entry is a lot cheaper, man. Like, you can buy books, you can read online. Whereas astronomy, man, like, you got to get a good telescope. I mean, you're probably going to drop a couple grand on that. Where I lived in Arizona, right on the Mexican border, there's a town near there called Portal, Portal, Arizona. And a lot of ex-NASA scientists live there. And a lot of these people are wealthy and they build private planetariums because it's a certified dark sky area of the country. And so you don't have light pollution and you have a really good look at the sky. Now, but again, what I'm saying, these people are wealthy. They have their personal planetariums and you know, telescopes and all that. You know, I have a friend in still in that area of Arizona, and he's an amateur, you know, astronomer or whatever. And, you know, the guy's loaded, you know, he did really good in the stock market and that's his hobby. So, you know, I think there would be a lot more interest in astronomy if, you know, there were easy access to planetariums, right? I mean, there just isn't, you know, so I think that's kind of the deal with that. I have an interest in astronomy. I just, you know, for me, I don't really have the budget for a telescope right now. And where I live, we also have dark skies over here too, really good dark skies, but it's just, yeah, I mean, well, let me say this. I don't recall what it's called, but there's an app in the App Store where you can point your phone at the night sky and it will show you what constellation you're pointing at. So actually, I'm totally wrong. Via our smartphones, astronomy has become democratized. We all have access to it now. You know what I mean? So, and that's the cool thing about it. So, and I have that app on my phone. I should know what it's called. But it's really cool. You know, you can look at the sky and it kind of gets you interested in it. You know, it makes it more accessible. I think the entry point that's in between astrology and astronomy is the mythology, why they named the constellations, you know, Ursa Minor, you know, like a bear, or Ophiuchus, you know, the serpent bearer. Like, that's really interesting to me, and that's how I got into astrology and astronomy. Really was through the mythology first. You know, like the Pleiades, the Seven Sisters. Well, why is it called that? You know, Orion's Belt. Why the hell is it called that? And why do the three pyramids in Giza point to Orion's Belt? Is this some sort of like celestial brazzers episode? Like, what, you know, what is this? You know, you just kind of, you wonder. And when you start getting deeper in the mythology, you realize that it isn't savages, you know, basically like writing fiction and overlaying it over science. No, I mean, there is so much allegory in all the mythology. So much where, I mean, it just, you know, almost makes our brains scramble, you know. Those people were a lot more intelligent than we are, at least societally, for sure, you know. And I mean, I think a lot of people know that. But yeah, man, I think, you know, I think mythology is probably the best access point to both astrology and astronomy. You know, I mean, some people have the mind for mathematics and details. I can, but I don't like getting caught up in details, which is why I don't enjoy things like Finnish carpentry and stuff like that. You know, I don't like details. I like the big picture. And thank God there's a lot of people in this world who like details and they don't want to deal with the big picture. So, you know, you just kind of got to be honest with yourself about what type of person you are. Some people are both, and kudos to them. You know, but that kind of just knowing if you're a big picture person or a detail person kind of lets you know if you'd even be into, you know, certain like granular subjects like astronomy or you know, like advanced trigonometry or whatever, you know. I like the more open-ended, bigger picture things myself, and details drive me crazy, but that's just me. That's just me. Yes. Got some funny text messages to respond to when I get done with this. Oh my goodness. Yeah, any other questions, comments, let me know. I'm going to try to do more astrology streams because I've always got a lot of interest in those and people have enjoyed those. And I really don't know why, probably just stupidity or just forgetting, but I really should do a lot more of those because I think people get a lot more out of them. Even though I do enjoy talking about the latest, you know, female teacher who did something horrible and is now in prison, you know, those are fun to talk about. But I also understand that, you know, once you talk about a couple of those, you kind of gone through it all, you know. I just got an email. Hey, Kami, I got your email, man. I'll get back to you as soon as I'm done with this. But hey, thanks again, everybody, for the super chats. I really appreciate it. Thanks so much, guys. Kind of brighten up my weekend a little bit. I'm still my back kind of hurts from this accident. I had to go to the hospital and get X-rays done. I have a little bit of a bulging disc in the lumbar region of my back, so a little bit of pain in the butt. That's honestly why I haven't streamed all week until today, but I've just kind of been taking it easy a little bit. But yeah, I mean, I'm gonna kind of keep my eyes peeled with what's going on astrologically a little bit more. Um, and what was I gonna say? I got a buddy who's got a TikTok channel, um, who who is really proficient with astrology too. Really encourage y'all to check him out. Last time I checked, his name was Royal Cusp Astrology. His name's Carlos. I highly recommend checking his channel out. You don't have to hit him up for reading if you don't want to, but if you want to, that's cool. But just even listen to his content. There's a lot of good stuff there. You'll really get a lot out of it. Oh, hey, thanks, Kami. I appreciate that. I appreciate it. Appreciate my fellow Canadians. Yeah, that's the other thing. That's the other thing. Again, that incendiary kind of like Rahu Saturn conjunct energy. This whole making Canada the 51st state. I think Canadians understand that most Americans, we don't want Canada to be the 51st state. We're totally fine with Canada being sovereign in their own right. You know, the hockey game apparently was fun to watch, with all the fights and stuff. But yeah, I mean, again, it's just I don't know. I feel like, again, with the Rahu Saturn stuff, you're going to get a lot more politicians trying to act like their will is the will of the people, and the people are like, no, this is not really. We don't care about this. Let Greenland be their own thing. Let Greenland be Denmark's. And let Canada be England's or whatever. Frostfro with the 10 pounds, thank you again, says, talk about natural cycles a little bit. Sorry to hear about your condition. Oh, thanks, man. I appreciate it. I mean, it's not, I'm really lucky I didn't get banged up really bad. But, when you get in a car wrecks, unfortunately, it's almost better if you do get banged up more, because it's apparent what's wrong with you. Even things like whiplash, man, can lead to some really serious, like, brain bleeds and stuff like that. So you gotta be really careful. Natural cycles, what can I say? I mean, there are obviously, you've got things like the seasons, you got the hours, the minutes, seconds. I mean, nature is just concentric circles within concentric circles. And intelligence has always been about, on the one hand, observing nature, and on the other hand, interacting with nature. And so I feel, a lot of people who get into like the research community or into like conspiracy stuff or whatever, they observe nature, but they never get to the point where they interact with it. I feel like Mother Nature is almost like a real person in my life, with my journey, my travels, everything I'm doing in my life. I literally feel like Mother Nature is anthropomorphic. She is literally not visible, but she's, a consultant in my head. And I'm not schizophrenic or anything, but I feel guided by nature. I feel that I've let, Mother Nature into my life years ago. Oh, probably back in 2011, 2012 is when I kind of made that decision where I would just follow nature completely. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I live where I live right now, and certain really cool things have blossomed by having that faith. And Jesus in the New Testament talks about that, about taking no thought for the morrow, And to me, when he says that, that's the exact same thing. Well, whether you want to call it Mother Nature or Father Time or God or whatever, it doesn't matter. You call it whatever you want. It's just having faith that, your progenitor, not your biological mom and dad, they're very important too. But I mean, the mom and dad of all of us and everything in existence is looking after you, And it's one of those things where nature, when you really do give in to that, give in is the wrong way of saying it, but when you really do submit yourself to natural law, to the way things are, I feel nature really does kind of like bushwhack the path for you and make it easier for you to walk your path. A lot of people, they just don't want to do that. Maybe they feel it feels hokey or like pagan or something, but it doesn't have to be any of that. It's the thing is, if you are aware, nature is always putting little breadcrumbs and clues in your life, whether it be the synchronicities, whether it be the numbers that you see or whatever. Those are all little wink wink and nods from nature. Okay, keep paying attention, keep being mindful, keep being aware, and I mean, in my life, just even having, Mother Nature as the guiding light in my life, I feel protected, man. Like there have been so many instances in my life where I should have died or I should have had problems, like big problems, but everything smoothed itself over and nothing happened. And I credit that towards just putting myself in the care of nature, Kami, again, thank you so much, says, Satipatthana, I'm butchering that, I know. Vipassana is the fastest way you enter meditation and never leave. I agree. Now, I don't claim to be a master of that at all. I do practice basic Vipassana, and for me, it really helps, to bring things back down to the body. Start from your toes, slowly working up your body parts up to your head. And you'll notice that not only are you relaxed, but that connection between your mind and body, once again, equilibrium has been restored. You get out of overthinking. I'm writing a book right now called Low Magic in High Places. And a lot of it has to do with people who unalive themselves and how I think you can't unalive yourself without being an overthinker and without being influenced by emotion. For instance, people who unalive themselves typically are not like under 90 IQ. Why? Is it because under 90 IQ people are better? No, it just means they're typically more content because they're less intelligent. They don't think. They're not constantly assessing and thinking and whatever. They're just pretty chill and okay with being alive. But so-called normal people and more intelligent people, you're always second-guessing everything. You're always overthinking. I mean, the way to make it appeal to everybody is we all feel the same way when you go on a first date. When you get back from the first date, you're always assessing, oh my God, did I do good? Did I do bad? What happened? When should I text her? When should she text him? You know what I mean? How's that going to go down? And there's anxiety with that. And the overthinking and the anxiety creates like a hairline fracture in your, astral or etheric body, so to speak. And it allows your emotions to become turbulent. And those emotions serve to destabilize you. And that destabilization is what causes people to give in and unalive themselves, in my opinion. But yeah, Vipassana is an excellent exercise. Kami, I don't know if you read any of my books. I'm not too sure. I have a book called Robot Abatement. And it's basically a workbook, my type of meditation exercises and somatic exercises to kind of induce different brain states, different awareness of your body and your mind. It's amazing. There's that saying, Benjamin Franklin, most people are dead at 27. We just don't bury them until they're 72. Most people, they don't even understand they're alive. They don't even know they're alive. They don't, let me put it this way. It's very interesting. Clothing is so weird, man. Clothing, the very fact we wear clothing makes us feel immortal. It makes us feel we're untouchable. But every day when you get naked, and whether you sleep naked or you get naked to go in the shower, you immediately feel once again that you're an embodied human being, that you are very weak. Your body's weak. You're fragile. And I think that it's important for us to know that and realize that every day, how fragile we are. And I think that helps with the mindfulness. That helps without, going deeply into anger and these really destabilizing, virulent emotions. That's just what I think. But yeah, Vipassana is a wonderful exercise. I've personally gotten a lot out of it myself. It's a good way to calm yourself. There's also, the exercises to calm your vagus nerve. For instance, getting a slightly cold glass of water and then just sticking your tongue in the glass of water and holding it there for 30 seconds. That'll calm down your vagus nerve. Your vagus nerve is the longest nerve in your body, goes from, the root of your skull down to the gastric area of your stomach. And I believe it's, part of your parasympathetic system, if I'm not incorrect. And other ways, like just gently massaging the back of your earlobes, things like that, or cupping the back of your neck and massaging that, there's different ways to do these things. And it's just a way of grounding yourself. Like, for instance, let's say somebody's really angry. They're about to draw a firearm and do something they shouldn't do. If they were to calm themselves down and reset their vagus nerve in that way, they would just chill and they'd reholster the weapon and nothing would go down. They'd be able to just go, okay, I don't want to do that. That's a really bad idea. So these exercises are really important, man, especially the powder keg society we live in right now, where there's just so much negativity. And there's so much just people who are scared and anxious of each other that things pop off. Things are so quick to pop off. You mean mug somebody, you look at somebody the wrong way accidentally. Man, things can go crazy, so it's just one of those things. I think it's just interesting to look into. Yeah, I don't know. Anybody else have any other questions or comments or anything like that? I do appreciate the interaction, guys. This has been a really fun stream. I really do appreciate it. And I'll try to do more streams like this because obviously the interaction is really good and it makes it a little bit easier for me because, I can go stream of consciousness for a long time, but it does weigh on you a little bit more, Oh boy, I got some raw milk from one of my goats today and mix some orange juice in there. Absolutely delicious. Real great delicacy for the day. Let's see. Kami again with the 10 Canadian. Appreciate that. They say, my approach is radical. I'm naturally extreme. It shouldn't take more than 3 years to achieve nirvana. I might pay you later for business advice because I'd love to monetize something. Yeah, man. Yeah. I mean, business is definitely one of my strong suits. It always has been. I agree with you about that. Oh man, I can't recall what his name was. There was a white guy. I think his last name was Bodhi, Bodhi, and he had some really good workbooks for trying to tap in and have these meditation sessions where you break through real quickly. But I agree. I mean, why the hell should it take so long? The human body is basically a light bulb, and our nervous system are like the filaments. All we're trying to do is all nirvana is increasing our wattage, so we burn brighter. Because what does nirvana mean? Nirvana means annihilation, right? Well, what happens when the wattage exceeds the capacity of the light bulb? It burns out. That's nirvana in my eyes. So yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I don't think that it should have to be drudgery. Samsara is drudgery enough. Well, but actually the thing that makes samsara what it is the fact that there's elation in samsara too. I mean, samsara has to be like an agitator, like a dryer, like a drying machine. It can't just be all negativity and suffering. You have to have points of elation and peak experiences and beauty, and that's what makes samsara what it is the constant tumbling cycle between these highs and these lows. I mean, samsara is basically like everything being bipolar, everything being manic depressive, that's kind of what it is. But yeah, I agree with you. I think because we live in a realm of suffering, a lot of people think that enlightenment needs to take forever and it needs to take millions of lifetimes or whatever. But honestly, I mean, what it really comes down to, man, and this is why I kind of like, karma yoga and bhakti yoga, is it comes down to compassion at the end of the day. Compassion, I think because of the cutthroat society in the West, a lot of people think compassion means rolling over and being weak. But you can be compassionate and still be a son of a bitch in business and cut your teeth and be good at what you do. You can still be compassionate. And all compassion is the ability to put yourself in another person's shoes. It doesn't mean you always have to be the bleeding heart. It doesn't mean you always have to, give to another person when you know they're going to screw you over. It doesn't mean that. It just means to at least have the vantage point where you can at any time put yourself in somebody's shoes. And through that own make-believe, you can understand what they're going through. You know what I mean? Much like, if you have a friend who loses a parent, it's hard, you can feel compassion for them, but it's more sympathy because you haven't yet felt it yourself. So it's hard to feel compassion. A lot of servers, in the retail space and restaurants, they feel compassion for servers, even if they haven't served for 20 years, because they know how the industry is. They know how difficult it can be. They know how grueling it can be, how mean people can be. If you're a DoorDash driver, I'm sure you probably know, how people can be. But, compassion is the ticket, man. Compassion has always been the ticket. And I try to put this out in my books too, that again, compassion doesn't mean you're weak. Compassion just is the ability to have long-suffering patience and to try to be as kind as you can in all situations, even when people make it really difficult to be kind. And again, I'm not saying I'm expert at this. I definitely have times myself where I blow up on people or I get pissed, but that's okay. None of us are expected to be perfect. It's just knowing what to shoot for and trying to get better so we don't miss the mark as much, Frostfro with another super chat. Thanks so much. Says, as I've elevated, I've noticed there's idiots at all levels. I assume the elites are not an exception. Biggest difference I've seen is level of courage. Yeah. It's like in like quantum mechanics, they talk about orbitals, how, the mystery of how an electron can morph into a neutron, or a neutron can morph into a proton, or an electron can morph into a proton. I talk about that in particular in the Forbidden Laws of Success, Volume 4, Human Energy. There's so many mysteries to nature, An electron, let's say, is kind of an allegory for the sheeple, A neutron is kind of an allegory, figurative allegory for politicians, the police, managers, any sort of buffer between the sheeple and the elites. And the protons are the immovable movers, the elites, Electrons can become protons. Protons can become electrons, There are different ways that this can happen, and it's so mysterious. And I've written about this extensively because it fascinates me too. But it's absolutely wild, man. It's absolutely wild, But yeah, there's different degrees of idiocy at all levels, for sure, super intelligent people have different blind spots, and typically for them, maybe their, nuts and bolts intelligence is going to be on point, but they might have a problem with emotional intelligence. Like, look at Elon, I'm not saying Elon is stunted emotionally, but just viewing him, it seems like, he's a brain, he's a calculating machine, and an idea guy too. But, the emotional intelligence and compassion, it might not be there as much. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I don't know. Kami says, WTF, just accidentally deleted the super chat. Yeah, I see. I think I got it, man. It says message retracted. So yeah, let me know if you had a question or something. I'll certainly answer it. Yeah, I mean, there's idiocy all over the place, but at the same time, I mean, there's bursts of awareness from people who you would never expect it from. People who are seen as dummies, That happens all the time. Sometimes I'll be, dealing with a member of the general public, and they'll say something that's really insightful, and I'm like, oh wow, I'm glad I heard that, because now I cannot claim that all these people are brain dead, because some of the people are stupid, right? But there's other people who know exactly what's going on. They just choose. They're like, you know what? I'm just going to be a cog in this. I don't want to expend my energy trying to be anything more, and that's okay. It takes all types of people to make a world, and kind of like not everybody can be a boss. I mean, we got to have a lot of cannon fodder. We got to have a lot of employees. We got to have a lot of grist for the mill, you know, in order to have people that can enjoy the fruits of the mill. So that's just kind of what it is. Anyways, been on here for an hour. If anybody's got any more questions, I'm happy to answer them. After this, I just got to go to the hardware store and go buy some waterproofing stuff, because once this snow melts, it's gonna be time to build some showers. And tiling, God, I hate tiling. I hate tiling with every fiber and thread of my body. I'm not looking forward to it, but I'm not gonna hire it out because it's so, God, the price of labor is so high. If I wanted a shower tiled, they would charge me like $8,000. It's crazy. And I could buy the materials for probably like $700 and do it myself. But that's another mystery of the universe right there is the cost of labor. Like, oh my God. It's enough to make you go crazy. All right. Anyways, I think I'm going to call it here. Hope you guys enjoyed the stream. Thanks for being here with me. I appreciate the questions. I appreciate the super chats and all that. If anybody wants to hit me up, thesoftspokenshaman@gmail.com if you'd like to read my books. If you'd like to, delve into the astrology side of things, natal charts. I do astrocartography. If you want to talk about the conjunction, how to prepare for that personally, yada, yada, yada. More than happy to do that. Just email me. And yeah, I'll talk to you guys later. And appreciate you. And I appreciate that super chat, Kami. Thanks so much, guys. Take it easy.